Welcome back to American Latino TV. I'm Valerie Ortiz. Born in Cuba, Roberto Sanchez escaped the island as a child and grew up in Miami's well-known Cuban community of Little Havana. He distinguished himself in the Navy as a Desert Storm veteran and eventually became a decorated police officer. But in 2002, the aspiring actor got the call that changed his life when he was cast as one of the leads in Too Fast, Too Furious. Roberto quickly packed his bags, purchased a one-way ticket to Hollywood, and has never looked back. It was a very risky move that paid off, as today, Roberto is one of the busiest Latinos in the industry, having worked in over 80 projects, including his feature role on Fox's new hit series, Gang Related. Check this out. Meet rising star Roberto Sanchez, a name you might not recognize, but a face you've most likely seen in one or two of your favorite movies. But before Roberto was hitting Hollywood's hottest sets, his family had to make some life-changing decisions.
My father was on the Olympic team in Cuba for judo, and my mother wanted us to leave the country. So the plan was to go to Spain while the team was there for some competitions. Well, we left before the team, but then they found out somehow what we were doing, and they kept my father back. And he lost everything. They took away his house, they took away his car, which was a big deal in Cuba to have a car. But he knew that the opportunities that we were going to get were much bigger than all of that. So we were in Spain for about a year and a half, 2 years. And then finally we were able to come to the US. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, so I just decided to get into the Navy. I did 11 years. I was part of a Desert Storm. And toward the end of my Navy career, I was a military police officer, which I actually enjoyed. And I would have stayed doing that if it wasn't for the modeling. And I said, ooh, I'd rather do that instead. I finally got into the acting. It was accidental more than anything. I wasn't really interested in being an actor. I was happy with the commercials and the modeling. And the opportunity presented itself. Too Fast, Too Furious was my first role. In fact, it was my first audition for a film. When I walk in, I see this little gentleman sitting. I said, man, he looks familiar. But I didn't know who it was, and later I realized it was John Singleton. They said, do you speak Spanish? I said, yes, okay, do it in Spanish. And then all of a sudden, something inside just said, okay, this guy wants some Tony Montana, Scarface type. I grabbed the guy, and spit was flying out of my mouth. I'm screaming and hollering, and he's sitting there like shaking his head like, yeah. The initial roles that I was getting were always like the bad guy, the tough guy, these type of roles. But I always believed that eventually I'll be able to break away from that. But I gotta stay here until I get that door to open again.
Most recently, Roberto stars as a man in charge of a holding house for immigrants in the independent film Lake Los Angeles.
Ella guardó el dinero y me llevó a las montañas.
Our film Lake Los Angeles is a story about, well, it revolves around two individuals primarily. Myself, I'm in charge of what they call a drop house, which is when immigrants come to this country, sometimes they're brought to these houses and they're kept there for a few days until family members here in the U.S. can come and get them and they continue their journey. I think that stories about immigrants have always been powerful because we're all immigrants of sort. I think everybody in this country, for the most part, has come from somewhere else. And I think that it's always powerful because you see the spirit to succeed, the spirit of just trying to achieve a better life, that fight, that journey. And you start to cheer for these people. I've always felt that knowledge is power in anything that you do in life. So the more you know about what you're getting into, I think the better off you'll be. And understand that there's really no shortcuts. And that's one thing that Too Fast taught me, was that it ain't always gonna be like this. And if you're in it long enough, you'll be successful.